I'm Coach Seb, and this is Running New Mexico. All right, joining me today, I have Jenkins. He is the owner, founder of Ardor Elite Training Academy. He's an assistant coach at Hope Christian Academy. He's been at at least one other school, and just a wealth of knowledge, actually. So thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. I'm excited.
Awesome. I'm excited too. It's been we've had this in the works for a little while, so I'm glad we've able to make this work.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
So my first question is, how did you get into running?
Well, it was pretty straightforward. I've always done 2-3 sports. Went back a long time ago when I was in high school. I typically played football, played basketball, and most of the time I ran track. When I was younger, I did play baseball. And then my eyes changed, and I couldn't see the ball until it got really close, and those guys were throwing really fast. So my inability to see, and I was too vain to really wear glasses. I left baseball, and my football coach and my dad, who was really like my main all-time coach, and my uncle, said, well, you really need to be running track all the time anyway. And I said, okay. So I did that, and it was old time school where, after every season, after football, the football coach would set us down and say, okay, what are you going to do next? And I'd say, well, I'm play basketball, and then right after basketball, football coach would call us back in and say, okay, so what are we doing in the spring? And I said, well, I think I'm going to take this one off. And he says, no, I didn't ask you that. I said, what are we doing? And I was like, well, I was thinking about taking off. My dad be working. He goes, I asked you which sport you're doing. And so I said, okay, I guess I'm doing track. And so that's what started the journey. The interesting part was, I was a typical football guy, 100, 200. And also, as most football guys, I tightened up as I ran, and my stride and my shoulders would just tighten up. And so my track coach's way of dealing with that was to say, let's see if you can tighten up over 400. And after a while, he put me in the 400 to see if I would tighten up with that. And man, that was the toughest race I could ever imagine. And but somewhere along the way, I got challenged by another athlete. I'll just say it. Black people didn't run the 400, is what they used to say. They said that to me, and me being me, I took that as a challenge, and I took it all the way. I did not win the state championship in Colorado, but I sure went at him, boy. I wanted him bad and just barely missed him. And so in that process, I fell in love with the 400, which is kind of scary, but true.
That is crazy. I mean, you've been coaching for a while. I know you're, even a little bit older than me and stuff. And we don't have to get into age, but it's crazy that that's even something that, that was just said. And that was just normal, like people would just say things like that.
The world has changed so drastically. We don't, when I was playing football, I had a dream to be a quarterback, and, that it was still a debate, back then of were black athletes, could we handle the stress? Were we smart enough? That kind of thing. But the world has changed so substantially. My oldest son and my youngest son were both quarterbacks in high school. And it looks like my youngest son, his scholarship is going to take him on the defensive side. But he was one of the top quarterbacks in the state here, at Hope Christian. So the world it's completely changed. And so, but yeah, those things are around. The problem is we often look at that and say, well, that's horrible that it happened to you. I'm one of those weirdos that thrive in a negative environment. Tell me something you can't do that. You can't. And I'd be like, really? Okay, I'll show you, dude. Yeah, bring it. That helped me more than it hurt me by far. And it sounds weird and crazy in this modern world where we're so politically correct, but that dude helped me. He wanted to hurt me, but he helped me. I used him as fuel, and I took his negative comments and I burned that, and that burned in my heart and created a desire that I don't know if I could have created without him. So, two of the most people that changed my life the most were that young gentleman, and then a football coach, in high school as well, telling me I would never amount to anything. Both of those things drove me far beyond anything I could have ever created on my own. So I'll take it.
I mean, that's great that it helped you. And I think that is definitely a skill that a lot of people don't have, is to take that challenge, that adversity, and take it as a challenge. Take it like, okay, you're saying this, so I'm going to prove you wrong. I know I can do that. Right. Like that takes something inside of you to really, go out there and use that as fuel.
Yeah, well, that's how I was raised, and I wish. It's sad that I see less of that these days, and you're absolutely right. A lot of young folks are really impacted by what someone says to them, and that's a huge thing. As a matter of fact, I was just talking with one of my athletes before we were able to put this all together about that very thing, and that the important part of what I do is, I coach, I train athletes. I'm great at building speed and run form and all that, but the biggest, most important part is usually I build the person too. And I cannot underestimate the value of that. Being able to encourage young people, because they don't have a lot of that. I had family and, friends that would do that. But the way society is now and the world, they don't get a lot of positive reinforcement. They seem like they do, but even their friends, just in kidding around, really tear down each other more than they build them up. And it's sad. So it's definitely something that we need more of in this world, is the encouragement side. Lord knows they got too much negative to deal with.
Absolutely. I think that's what I love talking with other coaches, because most are kind of on that page of just, I'm here to make a better athlete. I'm here to make, a good team. I'm here to aim for these goals, but ultimately my goal is to make a good person. And we can do that through sports by, encouragement, by showing them the positives, by showing them like, look, you can get through this hard thing, and that can translate to other parts of your life.
I agree. Yeah. That is the way to look at it. And it does. And it translates. Sports is so far beyond just playing a game, right. Participating in this. It's sad that a lot of the academics look down on this. But, I mean, the value of sports, you can't even put a level or a tag on it. I went far into my post-secondary education. And heck, I wouldn't even have gone to college had it not been for football, in my case. But the sports, just crucial.
I agree. And so, let's back up on that a little bit. You talked about getting into college. So you obviously didn't go for track necessarily. You talked about playing football. Where did you play, and what position did you play?
Yeah, so I had, coming out of high school, I had offers for track. I had one for basketball. I'm way too short. They really wanted to half me on basketball and half football is what they wanted. But I was pretty good at football. Did really well, and so I was recruited by a lot of places. I chose Colorado State University. I was recruited initially as a running back. I really didn't fit their model. Nowadays you can go on and see what offense, defensive team runs. Back then, you just didn't know.
Right.
There was no internet. So, they recruited me as a running back. And in high school, I kind of had some meanness to me. So I played fullback and linebacker. And I was also on both of those for 2 years. So they thought they were getting this 230-pound fullback that led the state in fourth down conversions, third down conversions, scoring inside the 10, and then, all this stuff, and then led the state in tackles. And here I show up some 100, I think I went in there about 175 pounds, soaking wet, 5'9", little speedster that shouldn't have been playing fullback. I should have been playing tailback. And I shouldn't have been a linebacker. I should have been a defensive back. They were old school under center, single back, more like the pro set we're used to, where the quarterback drops back and there's one back there.
Right.
I was okay running, but blocking them 300-pound guys, I mean, that's just leverage and mechanics and, those kind of things. There's only so much I could do.
Yeah.
So after a while, I moved to defense, and by my choosing, I realized my body wouldn't last much in that position either. One of those linemen, I was going through the line once, he just reached over and picked me up by my shoulder pads in the chest, literally threw me over his head to the other side, and didn't even take his other hand off the offensive lineman that was trying to block him. And, I thought, you know what? I don't think I can handle this much longer. So I moved to defense. I played corner. I had to learn that spot. And, that's one of those life lessons. That's probably one of the best life lessons there that I've ever had too. When I made the transition, I went and talked to the defensive coach first. And, I was lucky. I was a freshman. I was playing special teams and those kinds of things. And I said, hey, so what do I have to do to move to defense? And the coach was pretty straightforward. He says, the only place I can use your little butt is at corner. So I'm like, that's the only place I haven't played, And he says, well, that's where I can use you. You got to learn your backpedaling and this, that, and all that stuff. And so he'd give me a couple of drills. He'd say, yeah, well, you're going to have to work on this after practice because you're still a running back. Right. And I remember I called my dad, and I was whining to him on the phone, and Dad, I'm ninth on the depth chart and this and that. And I've got to learn this new position if I want to play and blah. And my dad didn't say a word until after I all whined myself out. And he says, you done whining, boy? I was like, yes, sir. And he says, let me tell you something. If I've ever taught you anything in this world, is how to work. And I'll tell you one thing, and I'm only going to tell you this once. There's no man alive that can ever outwork a Jenkins when he sets his mind to it. So get to work. And he hung up on me. We had the corded phone back then, so I had to go back in the room. I was in the hallway talking, hung up the phone, and I walked over and picked up my cleats. And my roommate said, what are you doing, Jenkins? Good Lord, it's 9:00 at night. I said, man, I got some work I got to do. And went out and just started working those drills in the dark, I did have to work. He worked me hard. He worked me hard to make sure I went to college. He worked me hard to make sure I knew how to work, and he was right. And so that's exactly what I did. And that's how we approached it. And so I eventually earned that spot and worked my way through and, Colorado State. And then I transferred down to New Mexico and did a little bit more football. And then, my father was killed in a car accident, and that took away my last year. I just didn't have the love for it anymore. And so that was the end of my playing years.
That's, just a fascinating story. Just, I mean, what it takes, and the fact that you work with, so many kids who are trying to get to that next level and going to college, and you've been through it and you have that experience of like, oh, I was there, and and it didn't work out, so I had to try this to make it work the way I wanted. And obviously with your father, and that's I I understand what that's like. I lost my grandfather, who wasn't really in my running life, but he was very much a part of my life, in my college careers. And once he was gone, everything just kind of became that much harder. It was harder to just kind of have that same passion for everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes it's not all directly connected, Right. We receive joy from certain things, and then when that changes, it changes, who we are. Now, ultimately, that those painful periods like that come, and, they change us. But looking back now, gosh, how many years that is now, heading towards, God, that's scary. Not quite 40, but heading that way. That made it change for the better. I needed to grow up, and not, so much just with the sports, but in life, and realize the whole world wasn't about me, and I loved it that, newspaper, I was in the newspaper every week and this and that, and I'd walk into the little shops and stuff, and everybody knew me. That was great, but there are way more important things in life, and you start realizing those things and living for those, and it helps change you, make you a better, stronger person.
Absolutely. And again, it's having that perspective and being able to having this influence over these young kids who are trying to get better and have these goals, and being able to help keep them in perspective of that is again, just another part of that coaching responsibility that I know you take such a joy in.
Yeah. We all do. There's no other reason to do it unless you love the kids and love helping them.
Right.
I mean, God knows it ain't the money, Even when I do get paid, or did get paid, my wife used to call that my gas reimbursement program. You do it for the kids. I mean, it's either there or it isn't, I think.
Right.
You know this as well as you just pour into them. There are things that a coach can do and encourage that a teacher may, or a parent may not be able to do. It just depends on the child and the situation and things. But man, yeah, coaching is powerful. It is powerful. Just the ways you can help and change and influence things. It's incredible.
Absolutely. It's actually reminds me of a coach I worked with. We had a kid, and his mom would tell this story, and she was actually an assistant coach too, but she would tell her son, like, hey, I think you need, because he would go cross country and do track, and she would tell him, I think you need to do swimming to help you with that cardio and help you kind of learn your body a little bit more and get you ready. He's like, no, I don't want to do swimming. That's no. The head coach at the time mentions it once. He goes home, Mom, the coach was saying I should do this, and it might really help my cardio and help me. And she was happy, but at the same time about ready to smack him.
Yep. I mean, any coach with kids will know that. Oh my gosh, your child. I think it's good for parents to realize they're not going to listen to you. My kids don't listen to me. I've got 4 sons. 3 of the 4 have been on full rides pretty much in college, And the fourth one, well, the third one in line, but he didn't realize he was a swimmer, despite his mother and myself telling him, "You're a swimmer, dude. You need to be swimming. Why don't you try swimming? Why don't you try?" He finally tries it like his junior year and makes the team. And his senior year, he's on varsity swimming at state. And I'm like, he just had just a little bit more time. He'd have been off on that scholarship too. And even now, the swimming is an integral part of his life. He's a manager of the Rio, one of the assistant managers at Rio Rancho Pools while he's finishing his school.
Wow.
But it's amazing. They will not listen to you, And I gave up after the first one. He listened to me probably the best of all of them. The rest, not a one lick. And I'd be talking to other coaches. Will you please tell him? Yeah, they'd be like, you need to tell him that. I'm like, no, you tell him, because he ain't gonna listen to me. And that always works. They'll come back like it's some newfound information, like they've discovered the Holy Grail or something. Oh, coach said I need to do it. And I'll be like, what? I've been telling you that for 5 years. You know what? Go with it. And so that is so true. But I think that's just the family dynamic, they don't think parents know anything. It's amazing. So the coach does have to fill in. And sometimes we have to fill in on stuff that we don't really know the whole deal. But you got to tell them, because, I can't tell you how many times I'm like, hey, boy, I heard that word come out your mouth to your mama. Don't let me hear that again. Today, right. Let's get on the line. Let's go. We got some work to do. And, I just heard a snippet, and then a dad or something to come back and say, yeah, I was going to kill him. But you got to him first, and I see what you did to him. So I'll take that, coach. Thank you. And I'm like, hey, well, it was enough for me, Yeah.
Oh, that's well, that's the other aspect. You've been able to kind of work with your kids a bit too, and that dynamic, like you just touched on. It's so, I love talking to coaches. Everybody I've talked to has wonderful stories, but obviously it's the ones that I can connect to a little bit more that affect me. And, I've got my daughter running, with me. I'm her coach over at Sandia. And
yes,
it is, that coach parent dynamic sometimes is, you don't want to be, they're your kid, they should set the example, but at the same time, you don't want to point them out to everybody else.
You can't hardly win with that whole thing. If you point them out, you're wrong. If you don't point them out, you're wrong,
Right.
I've been lucky to coach. I've coached all of them in something, because, went back to the club track days. I was one of the founding members of Cougar Track Club way back in the day. And so all of them, I coach with at that level, some in Yaffle and, 3 in high school, especially for track. Yeah. I really extensively coached them. But man, you can't, I don't know how you find the right way on that thing,
Right.
My youngest James, most coaches would, and his football coach does it all the time. Now look at how James does that. That's perfect right there. You need to do it like that. Lord help me if I would say something like that to him in track. I couldn't even get him to demo A-skip. I'm like, hey, you want this damn near 60-year-old man to show an A-skip, or can I get you to do it? Because you've been doing it since you were 3. But, he like, Dad, he give me that look like, please do not pull me out. Don't point me out. And I'm like, okay, all right. So here's the old man trying to now imagine me doing this like this, and I'm young and fit like you. So, yeah, there's no win on that one.
Yeah, it's a hard balance, but man, there's something, I before my kid got there, I talked with the parents, about doing cross country and track. Felt like I was probably seeing them more than the parents half the time. And, now being able to have my daughter there and getting that time, and not that I'm spending one-on-one time with her, but just in that being able to see what she's doing and have that space, it's it's a blessing.
Yeah, it is. I almost hate to say this out loud. I wish some parents would get a little more involved. There's always those that we wished weren't involved that we wish would stay out. But even encouraging on the backside. I mean, I think sometimes parents don't know what they can and can't do. But hey, that Sunday run that they got to go do on by themselves. And if you're a runner, go do that run with them, even if you're not a runner, get on your bike and go ride with, there's so much you can do just to encourage. You don't have to add to what the coach is doing or re-coach or co-coach or whatever. But just that encouragement. I think we forget how, and actually it took my youngest to say it this way. He goes, sometimes, Dad, I need a dad and not a coach. And that hurt me at first, because I've coached kids, for 30 some years. And so, but he was right. And I needed to be a father. And my dad was wonderful at that. He was really good. He never officially coached me. And there were times I didn't get any coaching except for him. And he was really good at that. But there were times he knew how to just be a dad and let me go through my process. Sometimes hurting and struggling for something is part of your process that you need to get. Right. And so, I remember, I think it was after my sophomore year of high school, I thought, I'm never going back untrained. I'm going to walk in there ready to go when the season comes, for football.
Right.
And, so I started running, and we had moved to the country. And it's a suburb of Denver now, but we were right on the edge of town. So we had a pretty good land. So I got out on those. It was weeds at first. I ran on these, just a 20-acre lot of weeds, and I'd be running around that thing, and my asthma and allergies would just flare up. And I'd fall through the door and wheezing and coughing and laying on there. And there was some tile there, and it felt cool, in the summer. And my dad would walk by, look over, and, Rocky was popular back then. And he'd look over and he'd go, it's hard now. And then keep right on going, And a few weeks later, I'd be there and I'd be sitting there sipping some water, not wheezing and coughing as bad. And he goes, oh, getting stronger, And, I remember I worked up to where I was running 5 miles, a day, which was a lot for a football sprinter guy.
I was going to say.
That's nothing for you guys. I did love running on dirt roads. That was fun. But I got up to that point, and he would, I'd put my gear in the car and take off running to see how far I could get before he picked me up. And we had 5 miles. That was always my goal, 5 miles from us to the freeway. And I made it. And I was standing there waiting for him, and he goes, now you're ready to fly, boy. You're ready to fly high. And that I'll never forget, because that was just those ain't even a full sentence over, a couple of months. But that motivated the heck out of me into, to pushing myself. And man, I've carried that my whole life, and so I think parents have to realize that you can do so much with a simple positive word, an acknowledgement at the right time. It will do incredible things for you. You just have to, accept that. You know what I mean? Yeah. And go ahead and do that. And that's the challenge. It doesn't take you coaching them and, hey, your coach is an idiot. No, it's just, hey, that encouraging word here and there fills in gaps like you would not believe. So, yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say, it's so easy for coaches, parents, teachers, all down the line to over explain and over talk. And you're tired now. It's going to get easier. You wait. And sometimes, just that simple. Yeah, it's hard, can be enough.
Mm-hmm. and you want to foster that in your young athlete, because everybody, you got to know, whether you're coach, parent, teacher, you got to know you ain't going to be the only one that's ever going to have that contact. Right. So, hey, get them ready, set their mind for that. Their mindset should be such as, hey, it's challenge. This is hard. When the new kid walks in the gym, we'll look, their parents are all excited and you're going to get Johnny faster and this and that. And I look at Johnny and I know I lose clients on this, but I'm here to do what I can do, not just coddle somebody and make money off of them. The money, I don't care. Ask my wife. but I'm here to develop those that want it. You got to want this thing. Whatever it is that you got to want it. And I'll lean over and whisper in the kid's ear. I was like, I'm going to work the hell out of you. Right. And they some look at me and I can see the fear. I'm like, I will not see that child again. But I love it when that look back to me. They're scared as hell, but they know they're not going to quit. And there's nothing I could do. And yeah, I work folks hard. I really do. I can't deny that. But I just love that little, I see it's usually just a small flame at the beginning of, I can do this. I don't care what this man says. I want this that bad, because that's what I'm looking for. And the next thing is, okay, when they're in there working, my first thing out of my mouth is, okay, what do we want to do with this? And 9 times out of 10, that's that kid that says, I want to do this in college. I know I can't even make the JTV squad, but I want to try and do this in college, right? When I get done. Yeah. I already saw that flame. I already saw that little pilot light in there. And so I'm like, okay, dude, let's do it. Let's do it, man. And God, that's what it's about, because if they're willing to work, woo, you can't hardly stop that person. You cannot stop them.
Absolutely. That is, there's so many things that a coach can teach, and there's so many things that a coach can help instill in their athletes and their kids. But man, that fire has to come from that kid.
Yeah. I mean, heck, that's the whole basis of my training facility. When we were trying to think of the name, I created this little symbol. I like martial arts and things from my previous endeavors. I created the little Japanese symbol with on fire. And I said to my wife, and it was like, just call it Dell's Gym or Coach Jenkins Gym or whatever. That's what everybody calls. And my wife's like, God, I hate when people name stuff after themselves. She goes, why don't you call it Ardor? I said, why Ardor? She goes, because that is passion. That is fire. If they don't have that, there's nothing you can do with those kids, and you know it. And I was like, woo, that's powerful. That is powerful. And so that's why we chose Ardor Elite Training Academy. If you come in with that fire, that passion for something, we'll take care of the rest. You just got to have that. But if you don't have that, I really don't know what I can do for you. Now some people have to develop some of that as they go, and that's fine. But there's some even in those, there's something down deep that tells them I'm supposed to be doing something more. There's something more in there, and they're looking for that, and those develop just as well, So, but yeah, that's what it is. If you ain't got that, I don't know, but there's always something burning in there, simmering.
Exactly. Well, you touched a little bit about it. You touched, on getting started in the name, which is fantastic. I love it. But you talked about, Cougar Track Club before, and, if someone goes on your LinkedIn account, you got biology, political science, law degree. How did you get from, I can see the leap from biology to the coaching, but how'd you go from biology to political science and law to this route? Like, bridge that gap for me.
I'm kind of a knucklehead. I call my kids knuckleheads all the time. I'm a knucklehead. When I first started school, I was chasing the dollar. I'd grown up kind of poor. And so I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to be a doctor. And really, I really have the degree. I can't say I had to have the degree. I had the degree minus one class, organic chemistry. I could not get past organic. I took everything else and would have graduated with a biology degree if I could have got through organic chemistry. I tried it 3 times, and I would sit in there, and it was like a foreign language to me. And I'd be like, hey, don't they offer this class in English? The man's like, we are speaking English. And I'd be like, I don't know what. And this was like the 3rd time I tried, And I finally said, I can't. And a good friend of mine, he was the opposite. He had started as a music major, and he was a ski bum, skiing every afternoon and going to class in the morning. He thought those classes were fun. And he ended up he's probably one of the most preeminent surgeons in Los Angeles, in the United States. He lives in Los Angeles because he loved it. And I saw that. And I loved the anatomy, physiology, the histology. I took all of that. I took extra classes. That was just a joy for me, but organic chem killed me. So all along that way, I had been taking graduate level history and political science classes for fun. Most people take PE and art. That was just interesting to me. So I would take 500 level this, 600 level that. So I went to the counselor, and he said, good Lord, if you take English or not English, history 101 and 102 and political science 101, 102, you could double major in history and political science. And so I did. And here's the funny part. I got A's in all those graduate level classes. I barely squeaked out a C in them 101, 102 classes. And after taking all those advanced ones, I still never heard it. So I tell you, young college freshmen, sophomore, you take those lower level classes, they're weed out courses. That is no joke. And I don't think they're really trying to weed you out. It's just, there's just a rote way. You're really not meant to think much in those. And that's the problem. But anyway, so I took that, and then I thought I graduated, and I'm looking around going, what in the world am I going to do? I am not a school teacher. My mother, a wonderful school teacher. My wife, an incredible school teacher. I'm surrounded by my uncle, everybody. They're great school teachers. And I'm like, I am not y'all. I cannot teaching in a classroom is not my thing. So at the time, FBI was hiring big time. They loved me, but you had to have either a CPA, certified public accountant, right, or I can't remember if it was a year or 2 of law school. So I talked to the recruiter. They were all into me. I was like, well, I can survive a year of law school. Can't be that bad. I was, again, dumb. And so I went in there, and it was funny. I got through that first year, and again, something I thought I'd hate. I really did kind of fall in love with it. I was working, doing research for one professor, and then I worked with the district attorney's office, and I was handling cases, and which was unheard of back then. But I had a little chutzpah, and I studied evidence so I could do it my first year. Usually you have to wait till after your second year to do that. So I love that. And so I did. After law school, I ended up graduating, and I worked a little bit at the DA's office and didn't like some political things that went on there. Went over to the court and worked at the Second Judicial District Court here in Albuquerque for about 6 years. I did a variety of things over there. At the end, I was working as a staff attorney, doing appellate work from the Metro Court and those kinds of things, on record appeals, it was called. And so I was writing opinions for the judges and all that stuff. And I enjoyed that. And then I went on to work in the corporate world. I worked for a company called, they're West Group or Westlaw. It's all the legal books that are published and all the information online. That's that company. Oh, and wow. So whenever you see them books behind a lawyer in his commercial, he ain't using them books no more, but they sure look good. That was that company. And I was on the cutting edge of that, of teaching judges and attorneys how to use the electronic version, because you could search so much faster.
Oh,
And
wow.
kind of became an expert in search and research. And then that led me back to where I started. I started doing some investigative work because I was such a good researcher. When I left West, I was there, I don't know, 5-6 years. I did some PI work and bounty hunting and stuff like that. And then I started working for the federal government doing contract work. And so, and that was just before, a couple years. Yeah, 2, 3, a couple years before 9/11. And I started that just part-time, doing little, short contract stuff, real active kind of things. And then over the next 15 years, I migrated through that, and I semi-retired, I guess. With contract, you don't get all those benefits and everything. So
right.
I did a lot of things, worked on the disaster response team, responded to Katrina, and
Oh, wow.
just a variety of things. And so, I did a lot of those things. And then that's, I have to say, Katrina kind of made me look at life differently. That was a very, very unique situation. And I began to really question, what am I doing? I was already coaching. Yeah, I'd coach Yaffle, we had Cougar and different, and it was Taylor Ranch Cougar Track Club back in the day. And that was just, what that was? We started that. There was 2 football coaches, and we got one lady that we knew from college that ran track. And we said, we got to keep these kids busy in the summer. And that was it. We had a whole bunch that weren't baseball players. So we started to do that. And wow, did that blow up, especially when Shane Cleveland came on board.
Right.
We just, wow, it just, because we at first, we were just sprinters and throwers,
Yeah.
And Shane Cleveland walked up to us, after a couple of years and said, hey, would you guys like to do long distance? We looked at him, heck no, we don't know nothing about that. And he said, well, I do. I love what you guys are doing and how you're doing it. I'd like to get involved with you guys. How do we do this? And so we just did it. And wow, that whole thing exploded. And so by the time he, and I stepped out of it, because when I was at Katrina, I came back with this sense of, I need to, I spent a lot of time talking to my mother, and she kept guiding me and saying, what would you do for nothing? If your family was taken care of and you could spend your time as you chose, what would you do? Yeah. And I said, well, I coach and work with these kids, but you can't make no living off of that. And she says, well, it's in there somewhere, son. And so I came back and upped my game. I started coaching high school football, and then a year or 2 after that, track. And, and so I would coach the high school football team, go inside, change the hat, come back out and coach Yaffle. I'd go coach the high school track, go inside, change my hat, come back and do Cougar. My wife thought I was insane. But the good part about that was I wanted to be the best coach I could become. So I started seeking out seminars and trainings and videos, and I just consumed massive amounts. I can't even remember. At one time I had, 25, 30 certifications from everything from Olympic weightlifting to speed and agility training to, God, you name it. And so I had all these certifications, and I was just coaching, and I was happy coaching. And then what really changed is my mother's talking to me, and one day I'm at club track, and one of my big old football players comes out and says, hey, Coach Jenkins, can I talk to you for a little bit? I was like, yeah, what can I do for you? He says, I really think I could become a good defensive lineman in college. If I just got a little bit of help, I could make it. I'm not going to be big enough to be an offensive lineman, but I think I could be a defensive lineman. And I said, well, you should go talk to the line coach. That's, I don't have that expertise. and that maybe the head coach, And he says, I did. And he says, they laughed at me. And I thought, what? They laughed. I said, maybe they didn't understand. He goes, no, they understood, coach. They laughed at me. And I told you, about that guy who had challenged me in track. All them feelings came back. And I said, all right, baby, I'll help you. Randy was incredible. And that kid worked so hard. All I had was, we'd do some things in the weight room. I was coaching at Volcano Vista at the time. And we had the weight room and the track and the grass. And boy, we just worked and worked. And he ultimately ended up earning a scholarship. And it took us a few years. I mean, his first year, he worked for a whole year, shows up, and the coach didn't even look at it. They didn't look at any of the walk-ons. They just stepped out the door and said, send everybody home.
Wow.
And Randy didn't even get phased. He shows up the next day with his cleats over his shoulder like he always did. And then I was like, dude, what happened? He goes, they told us to go home. And I looked at him and I thought, my God, how's this kid hurting? He's worked so hard. He had lost, oh my God, how much weight did he had lost 70 pounds too, because he was pretty heavy, and we had got him lean and mean, and he looked and moved great. And that's a lot. You're talking 70 pounds in an athlete, and he wasn't even, it didn't slow him down. He says, I guess I just have more work to do. And I'm like, good Lord. So we worked again, and then he made the team, and then he was on the field, and then he got a full ride, that set the hook right there. I never in my mind did I ever imagine being a trainer of any type. I didn't know there was such a thing. I had studied some, on the NFL level, and even met him and talked to him, again, just trying to be a better coach. And lo and behold, he had showed me something. And by the time I got Randy his scholarship, I was training probably about 20 athletes at various fields and tracks around town, and track and football. And I had realized the winters are cold here and the summers are hot here.
Yeah.
And it was pretty rough to keep that going. And so I thought, if I could somehow take a place and put it all under one roof, where I could work with them on their weights, where I could work with them on their movement and combine it, because that I'd already felt I had discovered a secret that, by combining the two makes it functional. A lot of times we get too busy off and okay, let's just lift these heavy weights. Football does that all the time.
Right. If
you don't combine that with the movement that you need, you're totally lost. And definitely when it comes to track. And that's how this place was started. And so that's what I did. I got tired of I call these college coaches about certain athletes of mine, and they say, yeah, you got some good athletes here in New Mexico, but you guys just don't develop them the same way, the states around you. Right. Texas, Arizona, Colorado, they really develop their athletes. Well, I'm like, you know what? We got just as good athletes as anybody, I'll find a way to develop them. And that's what Ardor was. That's what that came from. And over the years, we've trained just about every sport I can think of. And the one that shocks me the most is yours. I never thought distance athletes would thrive like this with this program. If you'd asked me before opening, no. I said no. But I got challenged. Hey, I had a mid-distance athlete. That was my second son. And and he said, Dad, I'd gotten my oldest through, and he was throwing in college. He's a javelin, and he ended up throwing all the stuff, but he was a thrower in college, and that's what his scholarship was for. And number two is like, you got to help me get my scholarship. So I went over to Rio Rancho. I coached there a couple of years and helped him get his scholarship. And he was at the gym, and he's a mid-distance guy. He's an All-American NAIA in the 800. And so I'm like, well, okay. And boy, I had to do, you talk about research, because that strength training and any kind of distance is not mainstream.
Right.
It's getting more so nowadays. But gosh, what was that? I think that's almost 6 years ago, 6 years ago. Anyway, it was a rarity. So I had to go to medical journals and stuff. That's where all that biology stuff paid in. You know what them brothers was talking about, because they are not talking to the average person. So all that histology, and everything was, man. But I found some tidbits of some studies that were done, and I used that. I really got comfortable with it, and then I formulated a pretty good plan for them. But I still tell you, it shocks me. I mean, that's one of my largest group is these distance guys.
Right.
And they asked me, Coach, well, you don't know anything about them? I'm like, no, that's your coach. That part's your coach. No. Whatever your coach say, I can strength train you. I can heal your body. The hip imbalances and all that stuff. Yeah, I'm good with that. I'll rehab you, prehab you, whatever, and make you stronger without adding bulk. But the run, I don't know nothing about it.
Well, that is such the hard part. And there's a lot of distance runners, even at the adult level, who are scared of getting into the weight room because, oh, no, I don't want to get big. I don't want to do this. And you are seeing, go ahead.
Yeah, I think you're right. I have to say, it is a fine art. It is a fine art. And some kids their body wants the weight. Right. You have to be very careful. You can't just send that to anyone. I won't say I'm the only one. That's by far from the truth. But I've had some athletes that really challenged me, but the two biggest were really kind of the foundation of my distance program. But Jericho Cleveland, my son Jacob Jenkins, and then even Dakota was the beginning. Dakota Cleveland was the beginning of some of that, because Coach Cleveland and I had coached together so long. He's like, I feel like they need more strength. Can you do this? And I'm like, yeah, I can. And he's nervous. He's nervous about it. Yeah. And Jericho, for example, you train him wrong 2 weeks, that kid would put on 10, 15 pounds of weight in 2 weeks. It was like incredible. So it really was a fine line. But I'm glad they challenged me. That took me a whole new path, it was, I had to just monitor them and watch them. We'd work up different sets and things, and then really get to know how running those distances. I mean, you guys have these athletes running some incredible distances. I mean, some schools around 30, 40, and they think, ooh, that's heavy. I've seen some coaches take them up over 100, and definitely for my college athletes, they're up over 100 miles. And so, I just realized that you just had to really be careful in how you implement it, and then know what the injury side is the biggie. I think, it's not so, part of it is about strength. Big part of it is about, how much weight they have versus their strength. But the big part of that is, what are you going to do as far as not, serve that, deal with their pre-injury kind of stuff. Right. And then, post-injury. And then, of course, make them strong as you go along. And, it's kind of a balancing act, and you can't get too far from the rehab. But I really believe when you're in those higher mileage programs, for sure, you need that strength training just for your body to take the pounding.
Right.
And man, does that make a big difference. I've seen them withstand so much more. And then if you're keeping your eye out for those areas that are easily to get imbalances, because, running that much, you go forward, everything's forward. It doesn't lend a lot to the posterior chain development. And so, the hamstring, the glutes, the underglutes, or deep six, whatever you want to call them, all those. And I just say hips generically. I'm not into, I know all those fancy biological terms and stuff. Why bother? Unless I'm talking to a doctor or something, nobody understands that. So I don't talk that. So I just call it the hips. But, you're starting to deal with, gluteus medius, minimus, all that stuff. And it takes a lot of athletes out of the sport. And you really, really have to watch. And they don't even know it's the hips. It manifests itself in knees and ankles and shins and all kinds of things. And I'm just slow. And, it all goes back to the hips. And I think, you've got to deal with those. And that I spend half my time doing that, and the other half just kind of bolstering and things that help their posture and their turnover and those kinds of things. So, wow, that was a long answer to a short question. I apologize.
No, that's good. And it's for me, I love hearing it because, you're right. Like, it has come a long way, and there's a lot more talk about it, and there's a lot more of the elites talking, especially in the mid distance, and then up to even to the marathon, of the things that they're doing. And a lot of that, like, single leg work, because you're putting so much pressure on one leg. And it's a short amount of time, but over that 5 to 26 to 30, however many miles you're doing in a run, to 30 to 50 to 100 miles in a week, like, it builds up. You're getting that constant pounding, and like you said, it's going to manifest another place. Oh, my foot hurts. How are you landing? What's your positioning? All of that stuff, and it all,
that's exactly it.
It's all, like you said, it's just the way that it's talked about now is, you can get a lot more information and a lot more, but there's so many different people telling, well, do this one, no, do this one, no, that's not going to help you, this, so having someone that the kids can go to and be like, and like you said, I mean, there's other people out there as well, but having, it's easy to look things up, but at that time, like now, there's so many different ways to look at it. So having someone you can go to that has a program that can be like, okay, well, this is where we start out. Let's see what works for you. It can be so beneficial.
Yes. And I mean, and that's, the beauty and the bane of the internet and all this stuff is, it's out there, but you have to know so much to even realize what's good that's out there and what's not so good out there.
Right.
And then you have to have some experience maybe outside of yourself to know what is possible to be done, on you, and what you need, and have dealt with those things. And it's hard because it's out there and you can find it, but God, it's overwhelming. Right. And if you just don't know enough, you cannot tell what's real, what's really good for you. Which, and that's the other part of it is okay, this is great for you, but it's probably not great for the person next to you. They need something a little bit different.
Right.
And you need to have that experience and knowledge to know, okay, this is good for this person and this person, but not this other one. And, when you come in here and you look at my board, and I write about, I don't know, somewhere between 75 and 100 workouts a week. And, some people look in. I remember I was with a business advisor. He says, you cannot make money if you're writing all these workouts. And I was like, yeah, but they need custom workout. I can't just throw them in there because this child has this going on injury wise, and this person over here needs this because they need to develop that, and they've got an imbalance over here. And so it's crazy. So it's quite a challenge to kind of self-medicate yourself with the strength like that. There's some things that you can do, and not, some banned things, and that everybody should probably be doing. But man, you step beyond that and it's a whole nother world. It really is. Yeah.
I feel like I could talk to you for ages now just on this part.
Yeah.
But for the sake of time,
Yes.
we're gonna
Yes.
leave
Yes.
we're gonna leave that on there. But I want to give you a second. You've been able to kind of talk about your own kids for a minute. You talked about your family, but I know these kids you coach are some of them become like a family too. And so I'm gonna give you a second, because you've had some, like you had some kids get some help them get scholarships and that. You worked with some pretty amazing kids over the past several years, and including a couple from Sandia that are, it's they talk about that for a second, just being able to touch those lives.
Yeah. Well, boy, you just tapping right into the heart, aren't you? Yeah. I call them and I'm sad. These people are in their 30s and stuff now, and 20s, 30s and whatnot. Heck, I got some, but they're like my kids. They are. Some incredible ones from, heck, your school alone, Sandia, I mean, how can you even talk about track without talking about Adriana Tatum?
Yeah.
Man, she was in here last night. She comes in still, even though she's at Arizona State, and went to nationals and all that.
Amazing.
Yeah, happened to run in. Here's the measure of that young lady. She runs in the fastest heat that's ever been run in Oregon, and ever the fastest rate. Woman runs. What does she run? A 22:03 or something like that. And she's in that heat, and she thinks she's terrible. Right? You know what I mean? And I'm over there yelling at her. Here she is, one of the preeminent sprinters ever to leave this state. And I'm sitting here fussing at her. You got to know you're good. You can't wait for your coach to tell you you're good. You're good. I know you because you're going to keep working. That's who you are. And she does. She comes in, she crawls out. And she's been doing that for 5 years? She came to me as a freshman, So that one is huge. You got another one I'm anticipating. She got injured at the end of last season, sprinter wise. Francesca Federici, she's heading off, and she's I've helped her rehab, and she's running again. She's looking real good. And so, she hadn't tripped over that person in that meet. Oh my Lord! She was slated to win state in the 400, no doubt. She was dropping 49s in indoor track, so she was just about it. We were gearing her and you guys, your staff over there at Sandia. We were getting ready to go off with that child. I
agree with you.
She and I talk about that all the time, is that, okay, well, this is just part of your path. You missed that, but you better go off in college. So let's get it done, And so I'm excited for her. We go back, we've dealt with jumpers and distance, and God, it has been a variety at Sandia, because I was at Volcano. I have tons of athletes that still hold records, be it Ali, Alejandro Goldston, Abram Shapp, and God, it just goes on. There's so many athletes, male and female. Lauren Green, went off to Nevada. She's the closest one to break that 400 record. Anyone, I don't know. I think she was a 10th off or whatever, and running by herself, but just great athletes, and I've been blessed to be there. Rio, coaching and training. I've trained athletes from just about every school. I tell you, it's neat to see when I love state track in New Mexico. It probably is my favorite championship kind of event, because it's just the grandeur of it. I'm so glad we got able to get back to it. We're 4 and 5A together, and all the kids together, and everybody in the tents. I love the whole thing. There are some incredible athletes. there were great ones at Rio, and then now I'm at Hope Christian, and it's a tiny school. There are 400 kids in that whole high school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And we are competing at 4A. And I'm not complaining. We asked for it. That we're barely 3A. But Coach Cleveland, I don't know if you know or not, but he retired at the end of this season.
Oh, I didn't know that.
No, okay, yeah. You probably need to chat with him a little about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very recent. So they're hot off the presses. I gave it to you. And since he announced it, I can do that. But yeah, but we've coached together because we coached at Volcano. I started at Volcano, and then I brought him on board there for distance. And then he ultimately took the head spot because I'm not a head coach. I know what I'm good at. I'm an assistant coach. And so I stayed assistant. He took the head coach, and then I went over to Rio to help my boy at Rio and coached over there with Sal. That's another great distance coach,
Yeah.
And heck, have entertained coming over there with you guys. But man, I think I'm near my retirement time. But Dominic, he has let you know he put my feet in the fire a few times.
Oh, anyway, he told
me. But then when we decided to move our youngest son over here to Hope Christian, because we just enrolled him there as a freshman, it was amazing that Coach Cleveland was coming back over there at the same time, and we ended up back together again. Just a great experience. And, those little kids, I mean, like I said, 400, it's a little school. And so everybody does all kinds of sports. And, you got to wait for the basketball players to finish up and this and that. Man, I love it because it's more like the roots of coaching, and heck, we've made some pretty good young folks over there. Megan Rodriguez is off to college at Eastern, and she'll be running over there. And Josh Pacheco, he was another one. There's just, I don't know, I can talk about athletes all day. We put out a few years back, we started tracking how many what our percentages were. And it was amazing. We push at 93% of our athletes that want to go on to college and do their sport.
Wow.
And that says it all. So man, I can talk about all kinds of kids, but I don't know where to stop and where to end, begin, whatever on that one. We just, but that's the joy right there. That's the joy. Working with them, they come to you with that dream, that fire in their eyes, like we talked about, and you help them, you guide them, you work them through this tough stuff, help them get recruited, find hopefully the right fit school, and let them go off and live that next level of their dream. Man, well, how do you put a price tag on that?
Coach, that is a great sentiment. And that is, I think, a perfect place to kind of wrap up, because I think that just encapsulates everything that you're about, everything that you're doing. So I have one last question. I usually give everybody a warning before this one, but I got that with you. And that is, I like to switch it up. So, what are you listening to get you ready to get into the gym, to help out these kids, to get yourself motivated? Maybe if you're getting out a workout, what are you listening to?
There's no one song. I listen to everything with these kids. They might be country on there. No, it's rap right now. And it's going on in the gym, but everything music wise. But I do tend to favor snippets, and you see a lot of that on YouTube and what's the other one? TikTok. I try and keep positive. You can get a lot of negative stuff, but I've always loved watching athletes excel.
Yeah.
And there's always a painful, hard road that they've endured. And that typically embodies their little clips. So they introduced me to lots of new music with clips, be it my own kids and others out there. They're out there, the grind never stops, all that stuff.
Right.
That gets me fired up. That stuff. I'm a bit of a cornball, Rocky gets me fired up because I relate to struggling and fighting for something,
Yeah.
and there's little videos. Those are the kinds of things that fire me up. And believe it or not, some of it's the great feats that they do, but more often it's their eyes before they do whatever they're going to do. You know what I mean?
Right.
Man, you want to see where the soul is going on, what's going on down there? Look in the eyes, and man, you will see a fire in there. And man, that's universal. There's no language barrier. There's no generational gap. The eyes, man, that fire, when you see that fire and you see that fire in your eyes, it's done. You go on and do what you got to do. So that's what fires me up.
Coach, I just did 14 miles this morning. You got me ready to go run some more. You got me excited. But this has been great. Like I said, I think we can. I got questions already pop into my head and this and that. But I want to respect your time. You've got kids there. I know you want to get out there and get back to work too. So thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely. Let's do it again sometime if you'll have me. So, yeah.
Absolutely. I'll put a link to the Ardor webpage in the show notes for people to check it out. Awesome. You can find the number, you can find contact, all of that stuff, where it's located if you want to check it out, which I highly recommend.
Will do.
Is there anything else you'd like to add before I let you go?
No, thank you for this opportunity. I'm sorry it took us so long. I've just got too many irons and too many fires, but thank you. I love talking about my kids and all this stuff and sports, man. I love what you do. So thank you for that. I appreciate you. So that's my last comment.
I'd once again like to thank my guest for their time and thank you for tuning in. If you have the opportunity, please rate and review wherever you listen to your podcasts, or just help spread the word. Music was provided by Philip Friedman. You can follow him on SoundCloud at DJ Teach. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at RunningNM. Feel free to drop me a line or shoot me an email at runningnewmexico@gmail.com if you have any questions or know of someone who should be interviewed. In the meantime, keep running, New Mexico.